For 107 years, Oldsmobile built the cars America dreamed of, pioneering the assembly line before Ford, launching the Rocket V8 and outselling Cadillac at its peak. But how does a brand that once delivered over 1 million cars in a year wind up erased and mourned by its own workers? The answer is not decline. It is a corporate murder hiding in plain sight. Just how did General Motors pull the trigger, and what did we lose in the process? Ransom Eli Olds set the gears in motion in Lansing, Michigan in 1897. He didn't just found a car company, he created the blueprint for how America would build its future. By 1901, Oldsmobile was producing the Curved Dash Runabout, the first gasoline-powered car in the country built using an assembly line. 425 cars rolled out that year, and by 1903 production jumped to 4,000, more than triple what any rival could manage. Detroit's reputation as the Motor City began with Oldsmobile's relentless push for efficiency and scale. When General Motors formed in 1908, Oldsmobile was the second brand brought into the fold, right after Buick. But Oldsmobile was not just another badge on the GM roster. It became the company's proving ground, a place where every new idea got its first real-world test. In 1926, Oldsmobile introduced chrome plating to American cars, turning utilitarian machines into objects of pride. By 1940, the brand changed driving forever with the Hydramatic, the world's first fully automatic transmission offered in a mass-market car. No more wrestling with clutches at every stoplight. The future was smooth, and Oldsmobile was at the wheel. Then came the Rocket V8 in 1949, a high-compression engine that didn't just power cars, it powered a cultural moment. The Rocket 88 became a hit on the road and on jukeboxes, inspiring America's first rock and roll anthem. By 1966, Oldsmobile launched the front-wheel drive Toronado, a car so advanced it won Motor Trend's Car of the Year. For decades, Oldsmobile was Detroit's laboratory, building the tools and the dreams that every other brand would chase. By the mid-1970s, Oldsmobile had become the car every American family seemed to want. The Cutlass, with its clean lines and rock-solid reliability, was not just a car. It was a status symbol, parked in driveways from coast to coast. In 1976, the Cutlass claimed the title of best-selling car in North America, a streak that would define the brand's golden era. This was not luck or clever marketing. It was the payoff for decades of engineering firsts and a reputation for building cars that lasted. The numbers tell the story. In 1985, Oldsmobile reached heights that seemed untouchable, selling 1,066,122 cars in a single year. That was 6.9% of the entire U.S. car market, a figure no other GM division outside Chevrolet could dream of matching. For one shining moment, Oldsmobile outsold every car brand in its class, sitting comfortably above Pontiac and Chevrolet while still within reach of Buick and Cadillac. It was the perfect middle ground, not too flashy, not too plain. The car you bought when you wanted to show you had made it, but you had not lost your common sense. Ask anyone who grew up in the 1980s what their parents drove, and chances are you will hear Cutlass. The name became shorthand for middle-class success. Oldsmobile did not just sell cars, it sold a promise. Work hard, move up, and one day you would have an Oldsmobile in the driveway. But as the Cutlass empire reached its peak, something fragile was building beneath the surface. Success on this scale can turn into a target, and in the boardrooms of General Motors, the next move would change everything. In March 1977, a Chicago man named Joseph Sywek brought his brand new Oldsmobile Delta 88 to a neighborhood mechanic for a routine check. What should have been a simple service turned into a bombshell. The mechanic popped the hood and spotted something that did not belong. A Chevrolet engine where the legendary Rocket 5.8 was supposed to be. Sywek's shock echoed across the country. He had paid for Oldsmobile's engineering, the heart of the brand, and instead found a generic Chevy V8 bolted in without a word of warning. He was not alone. Across America, nearly 75,000 Oldsmobile owners discovered their cars had been quietly fitted with Chevrolet engines, all while General Motors ads still bragged about rocket power. The backlash was immediate and fierce. Lawsuits stacked up, over 250 in total. 44 state attorneys general launched investigations. The press called them Chevy Mobiles, and the name stuck like a stain. General Motors scrambled to contain the damage, offering $200 to each affected owner and extending warranties. The final bill was more than $40 million, plus a settlement that forced General Motors to stop linking engines to specific brands. The Rocket 5.8, once the soul of Oldsmobile, was erased from the lineup, replaced by bland corporate powertrains. For Oldsmobile loyalists, this was not just a technical swap. It was the first deep betrayal, a signal that the company they trusted no longer cared about the promise under the hood. Oldsmobile's reputation for engineering took another hit in 1978 when the division rolled out a 5.7-liter diesel V8 meant to answer the panic of the oil crisis. On paper, it sounded like the future, diesel efficiency with American muscle. In reality, it was a disaster hiding under the hood. Engineers knew the block was just a converted gasoline unit, never designed to handle the higher pressures of diesel combustion. Water seeped into the injectors, fuel lines clogged with paraffin, and head bolts snapped under stress. Cars stalled on cold mornings, leaving drivers stranded, and Oldsmobile service departments were flooded with warranty claims. Stories spread fast. Thousands of engines failed, and the brand that once stood for reliability now stood for breakdowns. But the real rot was not just mechanical. By 1984, General Motors forced Oldsmobile, Buick, and Cadillac into a single administrative group, stripping each brand of its independence. Platform sharing became the rule, one basic car with 3 different badges. The new Oldsmobiles looked and drove almost exactly like their Buick and Pontiac cousins. The term Oldsmo Buick became a running joke, even landing in the script of the movie Fletch in 1985. For buyers, the difference between a Cutlass and a LeSabre was little more than the nameplate on the trunk. What once made Oldsmobile special vanished in a sea of corporate sameness. The engineers who once pushed boundaries were now just swapping grills and hubcaps, and with every indistinguishable model, Oldsmobile's identity faded further into the background. Oldsmobile's next move was supposed to save the brand. Instead, it drove away the very people who still cared. In a desperate bid for younger buyers, General Motors unleashed the campaign, "This is not your father's Oldsmobile." The ads paired aging celebrities, William Shatner, Ringo Starr, and Peter Graves, with their bewildered children, trying to bridge a gap that did not want to be bridged. One spot even had Rod Serling's daughter humming the Twilight Zone theme, a bizarre nod to a man who had been gone for 15 years. The message landed like a slap. If you loved Oldsmobile, you were old and out of touch. Loyal customers felt mocked. Younger drivers were not interested. The result? Sales collapsed. In 1990, Oldsmobile sold just 537,856 cars, barely half of what it had moved only 4 years earlier. The brand that once stood for aspiration and innovation now looked lost, chasing an audience that had already left. The ads did not just fail. They told Oldsmobile's core buyers they did not matter anymore. The Aurora arrived in 1995, a sleek, aerodynamic sedan with a dual overhead Cam V 8 engine and the promise of rebirth. Critics called it the best Oldsmobile in decades, quiet, quick, and refined. For a moment, hope flickered on the assembly lines in Lansing. But the numbers told a different story. By 2000, Oldsmobile's sales had collapsed to just 265,878 cars, a fraction of its glory days. The showroom was a graveyard of overlapping models, squeezed between Chevrolet, Pontiac, Buick, and Cadillac. Inside General Motors, executives quietly shifted priorities. Oldsmobile was told to hold its ground, to keep the lights on while investment flowed elsewhere. The future was happening in other divisions. On December 8, 2000, Chief Executive Officer Rick Wagner stood before the press and announced what so many had feared. Oldsmobile would be phased out, the oldest name in American cars, erased by a spreadsheet. 4 years later, on April 29, 2004, the last Oldsmobile, a dark cherry red Alero GLS, rolled off the Lansing line. Every worker signed their name on the car's body, a silent farewell from the hands that built it. After 107 years and more than 35 million vehicles, America's founding car brand was gone. The assembly line fell silent. The rocket was finally out of fuel. Today, car companies still erase brands with a spreadsheet. History, innovation, and loyalty are discarded for quarterly gains. As automakers chase efficiency, the lesson remains: when identity is sacrificed for short-term profit, even legends vanish. The assembly lines move on, but the loss is never just metal and glass.